Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. This is a season-spanning video stretching from early December through early March, highlighting the Paperwhite Nir, which is a wonderful cultivar that is new to me, and also the Tazetta Daffodils from Scilly Daff's blend, and they are in their second year in my garden. Hi everyone, happy holidays. Before the rain tomorrow and also before it gets too dark, I want to plant some Paperwhite bulbs. As you can see in front of me right here, I got these two Paperwhites that were already grown in their bulb vases from Trader Joe's. And really it's true, the bigger the bulb, the better, because these two, I picked them up because I saw the gigantic bulb in each of these vases. I saw the stems pushing up from the bulbs when I bought them. They were about this tall then. They were not in bloom yet. But as you can see, this one bulb yields 4 stems. And this one bulb yields 5 stems. I mean, this is just, it's a flower show from just 2 bulbs. Modern cultivated Paperwhites are descendants of the species Narcissus papyraceus. It is from papyrus and aceus, meaning paper-like. The Narcissus papyraceus are native to the Mediterranean region from Greece to Portugal and North Africa in Morocco and Algeria. Israel is the world's largest grower and exporter of Paperwhite bulbs. 20 million bulbs are exported each year. So Paperwhites are within the Tazetta division of Narcissus, which is the botanical name of the genus that is commonly called daffodils. So Paperwhites are daffodils. Most people grow these during the holiday season as indoor bulbs. But for myself, here in California Zone 9, I grow them outdoors and in the garden, in pots. If you are in zones 8 through 11, you can easily grow these in the garden. The most commonly found Paperwhite cultivar is Ziva. The cultivar Ziva was first introduced in 1997, and these have 40 millimeter wide blooms, 10 to 17 blooms per stem. And like clockwork, they usually bloom within 4 weeks to 5 weeks after planting. But the thing about Ziva is that they have a very strong scent, which some people like and some people absolutely hate. Then in 2005, there was an introduction of a cultivar called Inbal, which has slightly smaller flowers, about 35 millimeters wide, and a more subtle scent. What I have in front of me here, these are the bulbs of the cultivar called Nir. Nir was also introduced in 2005. These have slightly larger flowers than Ziva, 45 millimeters wide, and they also have a more subtle scent, which is wonderful. So we have 9 large bulbs of Nir, which I will plant up in this ceramic bowl planter. 3 drainage holes at the bottom, and I already pre-mixed the soil. So dump it in. Also added some compost because they do like nutritious soil. And of course, I'm also going to replant these in the garden later on this season. I plant these about 2 times the height of the bulb. Oh man, it's getting dark. It's raining right now, but not too harsh. Plain and blue salvia, looking wonderful still. So in these urns, Truffula pink gomphrena, there's beautiful sweet potato vine, also vincas. These zinnias are queen lime red. I'm planning on planting daffodils in this area right here. These are profusion zinnias. yellow. They're still looking wonderful. I mean, we've had weather dip down to 33 degrees Fahrenheit, and they're still going. But I'll have to take them out very soon. So I really did a lot of tearing up in this bed. I took out most of the Tazetta Daffodils that were planted up in this bed because the sun is lower in the sky during these cooler months, and so this area is completely in the shade. When I planted up the bulbs at the beginning of the year, they pushed up their growth around the end of January, and they were in full foliage by mid-February. By that time in mid-February, they were able to absorb the sunlight because the sun was hitting this area again, and then they were able to photosynthesize and they were able to re-nourish their bulbs. However, because this is the second season in my garden, these Tazetta Daffodils have reverted, have gone back to their usual growth period. So during this season, as soon as the temperatures start to cool down, they start to sprout roots and they start to push up growth through the soil. And this is, I want to give you an example of what it looks like for daffodils that grow in the shade. This bulb is flowering because it has a flowering ability that was put into it from the previous season. In shady locations, the leaves and the stems, they tend to become elongated because they're reaching for light. They're not as strong. They flop over, they curl. Because the stems are weak, they just fall over. And unfortunately, in this case, this one snapped. It's a tricky process, but I have already relocated most of the Tazetta Daffodils from this bed into a location that gets sun year-round, including the late autumn, winter, and early spring. And now I'm going to relocate the rest of these Tazetta Daffodils. I am digging up very carefully. I want to make sure to take up as much of the roots for each bulb as possible. I was able to dig up 27 Tazetta Daffodils from this bed. I think there are a few more in the bed, and I'll have to take care of that another time. But very important that I dig these up and relocate them because this area will not see direct sunlight until early February, and they need the sunlight to replenish their energy to bloom next year. I am temporarily planting them up in this crate. There's potting soil beneath the roots, there's potting soil around all the plants, and I will water this in. I want to make sure that their transition from this bed into the next spot is as smooth as possible. 2 weeks later, and already a lot of growth on the Paperwhite's Nir. 8 of the 9 bulbs have already pushed up growth above the soil, and the 9th one is right here. And I am going to add these dainty, sweet, and very beautiful penny primrose picotea violas. Move this one over here. Usually when I'm planting in a circular fashion and I have 6 plants, I would put 1 in the center. Then I would just evenly space out 5 all around. But because of the Paperwhites that were already planted up in this bulb planter, I had to tuck them in carefully in between, as well not to disturb the rising stalks of the Paperwhites. 3 months ago, I planted up these Tazetta Daffodils. Right now is such an exciting time because there are all these stems rising up from the bulbs. Look at this one right here. I think this one will be the first to bloom. Many flower stalks. Stalks after stalks. When I compared the bloom size to Grand Soleil d'Or, I think this one here is Grand Soleil d'Or, but the blooms of these are actually a little larger. And this one over here, the color of the cup is not as orange, not as vibrant. So these are probably a different cultivar. Each year, I can expect these to keep multiplying. So for example, this here, maybe a mother bulb and a baby bulb. So this one will bloom next year. It is mid-February and I'm here sitting down next to this beautiful ensemble of blooming Paperwhites Nir. Look at how beautiful they are. And in my hand I have a sample of a bloom from the commonly found Paperwhite called Ziva. And I'm going to place it next to the flower clusters of Nir. And not only are the flowers of Nir larger, but the petals are more spread out and the white is actually a brighter white. Each bulb has about 3 stems filled with beautiful blooms. I mean, look at how, the larger the bulb, of course, the better. And this is truly a testament to getting bigger bulbs. Look at this here. I mean, so many blooms. It is just so beautiful. Here are the Tazetta Daffodils in beautiful bloom. The yellow flowering ones bloom first before the white flowering ones. These are almost finished, but now we have a fresh crop of the white flowering ones. Lots of blooms to come, as you can see here. This is a classic, beloved Tazetta daffodil that is also a popular yellow flowering Paperwhite type daffodil. And I held back these bulbs to plant them quite late because I wanted them to bloom later. And look at them. They usually would bloom around mid-January or early February, and I still have them right now at the end of February into early March. I just love how beautiful they are. I mean, they're so dainty and so beautiful. Grand Soleil d'Or. They're fragrant, but not heavily fragrant. In this half circle bed, I have Tazetta Daffodils from the Scilly Daffs blend from Color Blends. This is their second year in my garden. I originally planted many of them in this bed and also in pots. And I wanted to have them in bloom in this part of my backyard garden because this area gets the most sun during the wintertime. And the yellow flowering ones were vibrant and beautiful, and they finished blooming already. And now the second wave of flowers are from the white flowering ones. I think this one is early cheer, which is a double flowering daffodil, but it has Tazetta lineage as well. As for the other ones, I don't know the exact variety names. The Isles of Scilly are a group of islands off of the southwest coast of England, and they are known for their cultivation of scented daffodils. And this is where these daffodil bulbs came from. I just go in and I just pick off these spent blooms, and it makes the bunch look fresh again, at least with the remaining blooms. The cups of this one are a bit more lemony looking, and this one paler. This one is very pale. I do have two yellow flowering ones that are much later blooming, and they're still in bloom. And you guys, I have to tell you, the fragrance is so charming. It really fills the air. And now, finally, I want to let you know that almost all of the Tazetta daffodils that I dug up, relocated, and planted up in various beds and pots in my garden, they settled in, grew well, flowered gloriously, and many of them are still in bloom right now. Daffodils are so resilient, and every year I look forward to their brilliant bloom show from winter into the arrival of spring. I've put together this lineup of 7 Paperwhite narcissi for the garden. First off is Ziva, which is commonly found, easily found, especially during the holiday season. This one has a high fragrance, is very quick to bloom. Inbal is a less commonly found. This one has a slightly smaller flower than Ziva, and it has a lower fragrance than Ziva. Nir is a spectacular Paperwhite that I planted this season. It's wonderful. It's glorious. The flowers are larger. The flowers are more open. The petals are more spaced out. And the white of Nir appears to be brighter than that of Ziva. I also planted Winter Sun for the first time this season as well. This one is quite a fun one. The flowers are cartoony. The flowers of Winter Sun are whimsical, as you can see in the photograph. Winter Sun, I must say though, has a thinner stem. The flowers are quite small. But I think that if you allow Winter Sun to multiply, I can see it can be quite a wonderful and spectacular sight. In my experience this year, because I grew Winter Sun in full-on sun, it did not need staking. The Chinese sacred lily arrived in the United States during the California Gold Rush, brought in by Chinese immigrants. It's popular for forcing into bloom for Chinese New Year. Both the Chinese sacred lily and Ziva are the two most popular Paperwhites for forcing on water and on rocks. You saw Grand Soleil in gorgeous bloom earlier in this video. It is a popular heirloom variety. It stretches back all the way to pre-1770. Especially here in the US, it is the most popular yellow flowering Paperwhite type Tazetta daffodil. If you live in a high wind area, this one will absolutely topple over. I grew Grand Soleil in 3 different places in my garden this year, and the area that gets less sun, the stems have a tendency to try to follow or try to find the sun, and so it does lean over in different directions. So it does need protection from the wind, and it does need full sun. Early cheer, my experience with early cheer this year was so wonderful because I found potted forced early cheer bulbs during the Thanksgiving holiday, and I purchased that right away, and I planted it in the garden, and the early cheer daffodils bloom from the end of November throughout December, even into middle of January. And each bulb, I think they were big bulbs because I had at least 2 stems from each bulb. For all of these Paperwhite narcissi, you need to plant them in the garden at the correct depth. The correct depth is the same as how you would plant your other daffodils, usually 2 to 3 times the height of the bulb. I can go on and on, but I won't. For all of you who have made it this far, thank you so much for bearing with me. I hope you get a chance to plant Paperwhites and Tazetta Daffodils in your garden. I wish all of you happy gardening and a great growing season.